Polynomial long division, part 1. In this video, we'll compare polynomials to numbers and then use long division with polynomials in a way that's analogous to the algorithm for long division with numbers. We'll go through the 4 steps of long division with a helpful mnemonic as we do 2 examples. The number 23,729 can be written in something called expanded form, where we show the place value of each digit by multiplying it by a power of 10. This helps us see that polynomials are very analogous to numbers. A polynomial is a bit like a number written in expanded form. And so just as we add, subtract, or multiply or divide with numbers, we can do very similar things with polynomials. We're going to practice long division with polynomials, so first let's go through with numbers. X squared plus 8x plus 5 divided by x plus 3 can be thought of as analogous to 185 divided by 13. And if I do that process in the American division algorithm, I have 13 goes into 185. So I look at 13 and 18 and say, 13 goes into 18 one time. Subtract 13 and I get 18 minus 13 is 5. Bring down the next 5. 13 goes into 55. 4 times 13 is 52. Then I subtract again and I get 3. That 3, since I'm all the way to the end of the number here, is the remainder. Now we can write the remainder as a fraction, so 185 divided by 13 is equal to 14 and 3/13. Well, let's try the division with the polynomial. X plus 3 here is the divisor, and x squared plus 8x plus 5 is the dividend. I'm going to look at x going into x squared. So x squared divided by x is x, and I'm going to write the x in the x column, that is, over the term that has the same power of x. So when I multiply, now the next step is multiplying back. X times x gives me x squared, and x times 3 gives me 3x. Now I subtract, and that gives me x squared minus x squared, 0. 8x minus 3x is 5x. Now I bring down the 5, and I start this process of division again. X has to divide into 5x. So 5x divided by x is 5. I add 5 here. 5 times x is 5x, and 5 times 3 is 15. So when I subtract, I get negative 10 here. Now that's a big difference between polynomials and numbers. I don't get 15 minus 10/13, which is the same as 14 and 3/13, but I would never write it that way. But in polynomials, we can write that x squared plus 8x plus 5 divided by x plus 3 is equal to x plus 5 minus 10 over x plus 3. Well, here's a division problem, and let's see if we can't divide and write down the steps of doing the division at the same time. So I write x minus 7 outside, that's the divisor, and inside 2x squared minus x plus 13 is the dividend, and I start by dividing x into 2x squared. So 2x squared divided by x gives me 2x. And I write that in the x column. Well, that's the first step. Divide the first term by the first term and write the result over the matching power. My next step is to multiply that 2x back by both of the terms in the divisor. So 2x times x is 2x squared, and 2x times negative 7 is negative 14x. That's the multiply step. Multiply the result, this 2x, by the divisor and write it underneath the dividend. Now I'm going to subtract, and since polynomials can have negatives, it's easier to change the sign and add. So in that step, we subtract, or rather change the signs and add, and we get negative x plus 14x is 13x. The next step is to bring down the 13, bring down the next term, and begin again. So the 4 steps of a long division process just repeat until you get to the end of the number. You divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down, and you can remember that by Dracula's mother sucks blood. So now that I've got to the bring down stage, I go back up to the divide stage. X goes into 13x, so 13x divided by x gives me 13. And I add 13 here. 13 times x is 13x. And 13 times negative 7 is negative 91. That was the multiply, so now I subtract, which is changing the signs and adding. 13x minus 13x is 0, and 13 plus 91 is 104. So that's the remainder, and I can write the answer as 2x plus 13 plus 104 over the thing I started with, x minus 7. And that's the answer to 2x squared minus x plus 13 divided by x minus 7. So the steps of a long division are divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down.